Yasodanandana Brajjana Ranjana Yasodanandana Brajjana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Gauranitai Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Hare. Good morning, everybody. Hare Krishna. Today we'll be reading from the 4th canto, chapter 26, entitled King Pranjana Goes to the Forest to Hunt. And today we'll be covering verse number 6. Please repeat after me. Tirteshu pratidrishteshu Raja Medhyan Pasun Vane Yavaratham alam lubdho hanyariti niyamyate Tirteshu pratiditeshu Raja Midyan Pasunvane Yavaratham alam lubdho hanyariti niyamyate Tirteshu pratiditeshu Raja Midyan Pasunvane Yavaratham alam lubdho hanyariti niyamyate Bolo Tirteshu pratiditeshu Raja Midyan Pasunvane Yavaratham alam lubdho hanyariti niyamyate
Tirteshu pratidrishteshu
Tirteshu pratidriteshu
Raja Vidyan Pashunvane
Raja Midyan Pasunvane
Yavaratham alam lubdho
Yavaratham alam lubdho
Anyaditi niyamyate
hanyariti niyamyate Tirteshu pratiditeshu Raja Midyan Pasunvane Yavaratham alam lubdho hanyariti niyamyate. Okay, I realized that I did forget to do something. So we're going to do this before we move on. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Nastapuresva Bhadrishu Nitya Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Okay, now we'll continue. Synonyms. What time am I supposed to end it?
Like quarter till.
Isn't that normally when we're supposed to end?
Yeah, but like actually end at quarter till.
Okay.
Instead of going to 9 like every class.
Okay, for the sake of time, I'll just read through this. Or, we'll do this together and I'll just read the translation and we won't read that one responsibly. Tirteshu, in holy places.
In holy places.
Pratidrishteshu, according to the direction of the Vedas.
According to the direction of the Vedas.
Raja, a king. Medhyan, fit for sacrifice. Pashun, animals. Vane, in the forest. Yavat, so much as. Artham, required. Alam, not more than that. Lubdaha, being greedy. Hanyat, one may kill. Iti, thus. Niyamyate
Niyamyate
is regulated.
is regulated.
Okay, translation, purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. If a king is to attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to the directions of the revealed scriptures, on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill some animals that are recommended for killing. One is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily or without restrictions. The Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. Purport. The question may be raised why a living being should be restricted in sense gratification. If a king, to learn how to kill, may go to the forest and kill animals, why should a living entity who has been given senses not be allowed unrestricted sense gratification? At the present moment, this argument is put forward even by so-called swamis and yogis who publicly say that because we have senses, we must satisfy them by sense gratification. These foolish swamis and yogis, however, do not know the injunctions of the Shastras. Indeed, sometimes these rascals come out to defy the Shastras. They even publicly announce that there should be no more Shastras, no more books. Just come to me, they say, and I shall touch you, and you will become immediately spiritually advanced. We hear that quite often. Because demoniac people want to be cheated, so many cheaters are present to cheat them. At the present moment, in this age of Kali Yuga, the entire human society has become an assembly of cheaters and cheated. For this reason, the Vedic scriptures have given us the proper directions for sense gratification. Everyone is inclined in this age to eat meat and fish, drink liquor, and indulge in sex life. But according to the Vedic injunctions, sex is allowed only in marriage. Meat eating is allowed only when the animal is killed and offered before the goddess Kali, and intoxication is allowed only in a restricted way. In this verse, the word niyamyate indicates that all these things, namely animal killing, intoxication, and sex, should be regulated. Regulations are meant for human beings, not for animals. The traffic regulations on the street telling people to keep to the right or to the left are meant for the human beings, not for animals. If an animal violates such a law, he is never punished, but a human being is punished. The Vedas are not meant for the animals, but for the understanding of human society. A person who indiscriminately violates the rules and regulations given by the Vedas is liable to be punished. One should therefore not enjoy his senses according to his lusty desires, but should restrict himself according to the regulative principles given in the Vedas. If a king is allowed to hunt in a forest, it is not for his sense gratification. We cannot simply experiment in the art of killing. If a king, being afraid to meet rogues and thieves, kills poor animals and eats their flesh comfortably at home, he must lose his position. Because in this age, kings have such demonic propensities, monarchy is abolished by the laws of nature in every country. People have become so degraded in this age that on the one hand, they restrict polygamy, and on the other hand, they hunt for women in so many ways. Many business concerns publicly advertise that topless girls are available in this club or in that shop. Thus, women have become instruments of sense enjoyment in modern society. The Vedas enjoin, however, that if a man has the propensity to enjoy more than one wife, as is sometimes the propensity for men in the higher social order, such as the Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, and Vaisyas, and even sometimes the Shudras, he is allowed to marry more than one wife. Marriage means taking complete charge of a woman and living peacefully without debauchery. At the present moment, however, debauchery is unrestricted. Nonetheless, society makes a law that one should not marry more than one wife. This is This is typical of a demoniac society. Umagyanatamarandhasya gnanjana salakaya chaksu unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakada Mayam Datati Swapadantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagapate Gopisa Gopaka Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishbhanu Sutrevi Pranamami Hare Pre Vancha Kalpatarubhyasa Kripa Sindhuvi Evacha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Deve Gaurvani Pracharine Nivase Sonavarpasatire Satarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare So, to recap, if a king is too attracted to eating flesh, he may, according to the directions of the revealed scriptures on sacrificial performances, go to the forest and kill some animals that are recommended for killing. One is not allowed to kill animals unnecessarily or without restrictions. The Vedas regulate animal killing to stop the extravagance of foolish men influenced by the modes of passion and ignorance. So the Vedas have a little something for everyone, because everyone is at different stages and are influenced by the modes to different extents and different degrees. So accordingly, the Vedas are set in such a way that a living entity conditioned in the material world can make progressive advancement no matter what stage, from the lowest to the low all the way to the highest of the high. Everyone can make advancement. So in accordance with this verse, I found this one verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter and 11th verse, that states, in this material world, the conditioned soul is always inclined to sex, meat eating, and intoxication. Therefore, religious scriptures never actually encourage such activities. Although the scriptural injunctions provide for sex through sacred marriage, for meat eating through sacrificial offerings, and for intoxication through the acceptance of ritual cups of wine, such ceremonies are met for the ultimate purpose of renunciation. So, one by one, I'll be covering each point, each of these 3 points that were brought up. So, sex is one of the bondages in the material world, and oftentimes it's said to be the strongest thing and the main thing that keeps us within the material world. Everybody's after this pleasure. It is said to be the highest pleasure within the material world. And everything is based around that, from the way we dress to the way we style our hair to what kind of job we do. Oftentimes are based on how is this going to help me, one, to get a mate, and two, provide for the aftercare, having a family and so forth. That comes along with that. It's a package deal. And in this day and age, people aren't so much in the idea of marriage. They just want to hook up with anyone that they can. This is improper. This is animal life, actually. Animals do not have marriage. Marriage is a human activity. And within marriage, even sex then is still restricted. Just like an animal has a certain season that it has sex. So, according to Vedic injunctions, within a marriage, one is allowed only once a month, 5 days after menstruation, to approach one's wife to enjoy like that. But even then, it's only meant for having children, more so Krishna conscious children within our society. But something else to consider for people that aren't on that path completely. Even then, thousands of years ago, there was another means to prevent illicit sex from getting even worse than just going outside of marriage. So in the purport to Srimad Bhagavatam 1:11-19, Prabhupada describes, it is understood herewith that even in those days, about 5,000 years ago, there were prostitutes in a city like Dwaraka, where Lord Krishna resided. This means that prostitutes are necessary citizens for the proper upkeep of society. The government opens wine shops, but this does not mean that the government encourages the drinking of wine. The idea is that there is a class of men who will drink at any cost, and it has been experienced that prohibition in great cities encourage illicit smuggling of wine. Similarly, men who are not satisfied at home require such concessions, and if there is no prostitute, then such low men will induce others into prostitution. It is better that prostitutes be available in the market so that the sanctity of society can be maintained. It is better to maintain a class of prostitutes than to encourage prostitutes within society. The real reformation is to enlighten all people to become devotees of the Lord, and that will check all kinds of deteriorating factors of life. So even back then, just because we know not everybody's going to follow properly, that's not really believable. We can't expect everyone to follow things very nicely to the whatever degree. So even then, there are concessions made for those people. That way it doesn't influence other people. Just as it said, instead of forcing other women into prostitution, there was at least a section of prostitutes for that. Now, prostitution is everywhere because there isn't this restrictedness of marriage, and even then there's not a restrictedness to a prostitution. It's anyone and everyone's free game. And because of this, everyone's degraded, and there's many people born out of wedlock that their parents aren't together. It was just a one-time thing, and now they're grown up unwanted. Sometimes they're put into orphanages, sometimes they're aborted. So many different things are caused by this. But because people don't know the proper way to go about sex life, if one has to have sex, then one could get married, and even then it should be restricted. But without this restriction, many things like this occur. And so, continuing on with that, we'll go on to meat eating. So, in the purport to Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Lila 24:250, it is said, in the Vedic civilization, meat eaters are advised to kill an animal for the goddess Kali or a similar demigod. This is in order not to give the animal unnecessary pain, as slaughterhouses do. In the Balidana sacrifice to a demigod, it is recommended to cut the throat of an animal with one slice. This should be done on a dark moon night, and the painful noises expressed by the animal at the time of being slaughtered are not to be heard by anyone. There are also many other restrictions. Slaughter is allowed only once a month, and the killer of the animal has to suffer similar pains in the next life. At the present moment, so-called civilized men do not sacrifice animals to a deity in a religious or ritualistic way. They openly kill animals daily by the thousands for no purpose other than the satisfaction of the tongue. So we can practically see this. There's a way, if one absolutely is against just being vegetarian, there is a concession for it. And they know well that in their next life they're going to have to suffer for doing this. But there's a way to go about it properly. But even then, in this age, no one is doing that. There's slaughterhouses practically everywhere, by thousands. I mean, meat is so readily available, and there's so much quantity of it in any store, in any restaurant, that you can only imagine how many slaughterhouses there are. And this is just within our one country, but this is going on in like various countries simultaneously. So continue on. Srimad Bhagavatam 11:5-14, the verse says, those sinful persons who are ignorant of actual religious principles, yet consider themselves to be completely pious, without compunction, commit violence against innocent animals who are fully trusting in them. In their next life, such sinful persons will be eaten by the same creatures they have killed in this life. So we see even in religious or spiritual institutions or followers, many of them still eat meat, and they think they're still very saintly doing so. But they do not realize what comes along with this eating of the meat, because they're not properly they do not properly know. So in the Manu Samhita, there's this verse, very popular verse. Prabhupada quotes this one. Mansa pakshayita tamutra yasya mansa ihadmyaham etan mangsasya mangsatvam pravadati manishana. That creature whose flesh I am eating here and now will consume me in the next life. Thus, meat is called mangsa, as described by learned authorities. So, mam means me, and sa means he. So I'm eating some animal. So in my next life, the animal will eat me. The human body is not meant to eat animals. This is something people don't really focus on. But just from a basic point of how is a human body compared to that of a carnivore and that of a herbivore, is one, we don't have very sharp canines and all that. We have teeth more like an omnivore. We don't have sharp canines or even a wide jaw to really chew meat like this. Two, our intestines are way longer than that of a meat eater. A meat eater's intestines are short, and that way the meat goes in and out fast, little time as possible. Four, the acid in a meat eater's stomach is very high comparatively. So when we eat meat, how long it takes in our stomach acid, how weak it is, oftentimes we could get sick or have different types of diseases due to this. Another thing, we don't got claws. We don't got sharp claws to attack or anything like this. Another thing, meat-eating animals, they don't sweat or anything like that through their pores. They what's the word I'm looking for? Hold on 1 second. They do not sweat for the pores. Rather, they regulate their body temperature through their tongue. So oftentimes we'll see this when we look at a dog or at Lolita, Priya over here. They don't sweat through their pores like a herbivore does. Another thing is, where was I going with that? Anyways, we'll just skip that one, I guess, because it's out of my mind. But anyways, as we can see, our body isn't cut for that. And another thing is, without a weapon, who's going to go and kill an animal? Are you really going to go up against a deer or any of these other things with what you were gifted, your 2 hands and legs? You're going to run after deer. You're not as fast. You're not going to be able to slice through them or bite their neck or anything like this. You're not meant for it. And even then, if you did have that capability, do you really have the heart to do it? Generally not. Huh? But generally not. So these should be simple signs that maybe I shouldn't be eating meat. Maybe that is not what the human body is supposed to eat. And the fact that humans can survive without meat, that should be a big tell sign that we don't need to eat meat. But there's concession for those who absolutely are like, no, I'm going to still eat meat. There's concession for them. The one exception is do not eat the cow. The cow is the mother. She gives milk to you. She provides everything that you need. She has nutrients that within her milk being consumed, it helps with the finer tissue in the brain so that one could understand spiritual knowledge. And of course, other nutrients that our body absolutely needs. So, to go on, the purport of Srimad Bhagavatam 1.3.24 is stated, Maharaj Parikshit said that only the animal killer cannot relish the transcendental message of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, if people are to be educated to the path of Godhead, they must be taught first and foremost to stop the process of animal killing, as above mentioned. It's nonsensical to say that animal killing has nothing to do with spiritual realization. So this should be evident. It's not necessary. If our bodies don't need meat to survive, it's unnecessary to cause harm to an animal. And by causing harm to anyone, you are hurting another living entity who is also special to the Lord. You were once an animal. I was once an animal. All of us been through many of these different lives, birth after birth, rarely achieving the human birth. So there's no need to do this. And by doing so, we cause our own harm by hurting someone dear to Krishna. And so our spiritual realization is going to be very minimal at that. And by doing so, we also desensitize ourselves. If I'm able to kill an animal, I'm able to hurt an animal, what to speak of another human, I'll be more likely able and willing to kill or hurt a human through my words or through my actions. So now on to intoxication. So in the purport to 11.5.11 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada says, similarly, there are other injunctions governing the regulated consumption of liquor and meat. Those who are mad after meat eating are instructed to perform Vedic ceremonies, but they are permitted to consume 5 types of 5-clawed animals, namely the rhinoceros, turtle, rabbit, porcupine, and lizard. Similarly, the consumption of specific liquors is allowed during highly restricted sacrifices performed on specific days of the year at great expense. In this way, other types of drunkenness and cruel animal slaughter are prohibited. One is gradually purified by performing such sacrifices, and he develops a distaste for such foolish activities as meat eating and the drinking of liquor. So even intoxication is something that the Vedas have a way to go about it. But another thing to keep in mind is that most people cannot, in this age, pretty much all people in this age are not qualified to do any of these rituals or any of these sacrifices properly. They don't have the right mantras, or if they do have the right mantras, they don't know how to pronounce them properly. They don't have the proper setup. They don't have the proper things to properly execute these. Even in animal sacrifice, if the animal is killed, the animal would either take a human birth next, right, immediately, or go to the heavenly world and have a demigod birth immediately. It wasn't just, I'm doing this to eat meat, and so forth with all these other things. They all have a purpose to gradually advance one upward. So Prabhupada also says, therefore, all the Vedic scriptures are meant for knowing Krishna. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyaha. The ultimate goal of Vedas cannot be any type of absorption in the material senses, either licit or illicit. So we should know that ultimately all these things, even if they are giving concession for abominable actions, is to gradually raise one to Krishna consciousness. This is the whole point of the Vedas. Even Krishna says that of the Vedas I am to be known. So ultimately, all this should eventually culminate in Krishna consciousness. This is the ultimate goal. And Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita 8, chapter 8, verse 5, and whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone, at once attains my nature. Of this, there's no doubt. So if we're focused on our own sense gratification, what can we get in this life? How can we attain it? How can I be comfortable within this life, although it's flickering? If we're focused on these things, we're not gonna make it back home. We're gonna have to take another birth. That way we could satisfy these desires. The whole material world was created in such a way to satisfy our material desires. Although Krishna doesn't necessarily want us to be here and have to suffer, do all this, he, being merciful on us, has given us the opportunity to fulfill these desires. By coming to the material world, you get to play God practically. You get to try to be your own person, your own center of your own world, and try to satisfy yourself in whatever way you think possible. But the material world is also set up that this is not possible. You get to do so much, and then it's checked by something: birth, death, old age, disease. The three different types of disturbances or afflictions that we have, those from the mind and body, those caused by others, or those by natural disasters. Constantly there's something giving us pains if we're not back home. So the whole point of life is to come to the point of knowing Krishna, loving Krishna, and serving Krishna out of love. This is the highest goal. This is what the Vedas speak about. And this is what the highest authorities of spiritual knowledge speak about. Even in other religions, the ultimate goal is God. Is to know God, is to love God, is to serve God. This is the basis of all religion, all true religion at least. So with this being said, it is getting late. So are there any questions or comments?
Thank you for that scary class. Just kidding. So you telling me, like that Bhagavatam story, we can't take Chris from the garden and sacrifice him to Kali?
Yeah, no.
This isn't bona fide? Yeah. I'm thinking of Lord Jesus and how he's an interesting Vaishnava or Shakti Vaishya avatar. I guess it's time, place, circumstance. But I actually saw a video of Prabhupada saying that if Jesus even ate meat, but I mean, there is the stories of him like manifesting fish, but Prabhupada said, if you have the choice, obviously choose vegetarian, but, also like surviving is a higher principle. And then it makes, I'm just curious about Jesus, there's like how he turns the water into wine story. And then I thought, well, it reminds me of what it was saying maybe with ritual. I was watching a little bit there's a new show called The Chosen or something.
Oh yeah, I've watched that.
It's pretty good actually. It was at like a wedding where he changed the water into wine, at least one story. But yeah, just that reminded me of a few things with meat eating and intoxication. And then one other thing it made me think of is I saw this cool seeming bodybuilder, and I don't know if he said this or had a shirt, but it said, I don't eat the ox, I eat what the ox eats. Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool thought.
Yeah, Jesus, as Prabhupada once said in the lecture, which is probably the one you saw, you could eat the whole world. You can't. Don't imitate. You want to imitate? You sacrifice yourself for the preaching of Krishna consciousness, of God consciousness. God could do whatever he wants, even his Shaktivesh avatars. They have the power to do so.
Yeah, I'm curious about the details because, like Govinda, some of our, devotee friends, they seem to know quite a bit about Christianity, and they say that it does talk about being vegetarian in the Bible. You've mentioned that, but anyways, there's interesting nuances there I'd like to know more about.
That story about Jesus and the loaves and the fishes, it's been suggested by many different scholars that the word that they translated into fishes does not actually mean fishes and just means some kind of like generic like food.
Oh yeah, I've heard that about several different things in the Bible. That's the thing about translations. So, but if you like, after class, I do have a link that a Christian lady came up to me while I was out on books gave, and it was like a documentary on Jesus likely being vegetarian. I haven't watched it yet, but I do have the link if you'd like it.
Yeah, it's not what's that one the Christspiracy or something?
Yeah, that
Is
one.
that the one?
Yeah.
I've had it recommended multiple times. Must be good.
Yeah, I need to watch it still. It's that.
So I just heard a statistic that meat consumption in the U.S. has doubled in the last 100 years. Now we're at record highs. And if you look in the news, like every couple weeks or sometimes every week, there's a new food that's being recalled or whatever. And so, sometimes I'll check it out to see if, I'm in danger. And like almost all the time, it's some kind of meat-based product, and it's got something wrong with it. And people are getting sick or even dying. And so then I'm always like, well, glad that doesn't affect me.
It's funny that you say that. A year or two ago, I was taking a class at the U of A, and it was like a nutrition class. And, it talks about different preps and health and things like that. And one of the things I realized taking the class is that all, or practically all, what do you call that? Like infectious things or things that need to be recalled are due to it either one being meat or two, there is some type of animal thing, whether it's animal feces or meat itself touching the plants. So generally, the whole cause of all this is from animal products in general.
I mean, just imagine that one thing being different on the planet, just no meat eating, Like how it seems like that would just like change almost just so much, just that one thing.
That's a big thing. Because of it, Prabhupada describes that, I think it was the last verse too in the purport, he describes that due to meat eating and animal killing and maintaining slaughterhouses is the cause for many wars.
Yeah, they have to happen.
Yeah, they'll be slaughtered just like they slaughtered the animals.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, any quick last things before we end the class? Okay, then Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.